And looks like we are live. So hopefully some people have tuned in. And if people have tuned in on this, I think if you type in questions in the comments box, this is our first time using this technology, so it'll be a little new. We didn't really have a chance to do a test run, but if you tune in, you've got questions that we're not covering, then you can type those, I think, in some kind of comment box, like you would normal YouTube comments. And if we don't see it, we'll answer it later. So anyway, it looks like we got one viewer, but we'll go ahead and not waste much time. That way we don't interrupt anyone's regularly scheduled programming. So we've got a course coming up called Women's Protective Measures. Obviously, if you're watching this, you saw it on the Facebook event page. And it's coming up this coming Saturday, October 7th. And this is going to be a video that we're going to save for anyone who, in the future, who's interested, but doesn't really know what it's about or maybe have concerns about it. So we've got a couple of assistant instructors here. Got Chelsea, so say hello, Chelsea. Actually say it so they can see you.
Oh, hi. Yeah, hello, everyone.
And also Caitlin.
Hey.
And someone who's gone through the course at least once, maybe twice, and done a PPM a couple times, Joe.
Hi.
So you'll get multiple perspectives. So one of the questions that comes up, I posted this on Facebook earlier, because on the event page that we've got currently, there's over 100 ladies either interested or say they're coming, but we've had, kind of a small sign-up group so far, and I'm wondering why that is. Is it scheduling? Is it questions, concerns, fears that a lot of time people don't want to say, okay, this is what I'm afraid of. So one of the questions is, this is actually the most common reason I've heard that women won't get training is they'll say, my husband or my boyfriend will protect me. And every time I've heard that, that boyfriend or husband has not been present. And that's not to say I don't think they would. I personally think they would, but I'm not sure that he will always be around. If he's not with you 24/7, then there's a possibility that he won't be there to do that protection. But instead of hearing my word for it, because I'm a guy, I want to hear the ladies' word for it. So let's go to Chelsea.
All right. So your boyfriend or your spouse or someone will always be there to protect you in case you need it. One thing to keep in mind is that they might always not happen in the home. So for example, if you're coming home from work, it's 9 p.m. at night, you don't have any groceries in the fridge, you need to go to the grocery store, the supermarket. Parking lots can be really common places, or you're going on a night out on the town with the girls. I know I've had personal experience where even though I'm with a group of friends, you're still with a group of friends that are primarily female, no guys around. So I've had some experiences where guys still feel like it's okay to approach. So you never know what situation you might be in, and they're not always with you either. But as well, like my boyfriend, for example, is extremely supportive of my training. So if you're cautious about coming to training because you don't want to throw them off for any reason, I'd recommend having a conversation, because more often than not, that's just kind of like a pre-misconception. So
That's all for you, Chelsea?
Unless there's any specifics. But yeah, I mean, mostly it's areas where it doesn't feel like anything could happen because we're so used to going to them. For example, like the supermarket's the most common one. So everyone goes there like probably once or twice a week, maybe more, and nothing happens during that time frame. You think something might not happen because you're so used to it. So
Cool. Let's see. Let's go to. Let's see how's this work here. Well, Joe, have you got yourself on mute? Hold on, so we're having some technical difficulties. Somebody say something.
Hey.
Okay, I got Chelsea. I got Caitlin. Joe, I think
I just took myself off mute.
Yeah, Joe, see if you can see where you.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I got a little thing that said ACT Defense has muted you, so I thought it was a.
No, I was just doing that to black out background noise.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
Go ahead with that same question.
Yeah, so I guess like Chelsea was saying, I mean, you're not always with your husband or boyfriend, and I mean, I guess you have to kind of acknowledge the possibility that they might not always be there. And then, just kind of giving yourself some independence and some confidence to travel without them. I mean, kind of if you're dependent on them for your own safety, that's something that you should probably address. And then if you want to be kind of a support system for them, then if the two of you are in a situation that turns dangerous, then, it's in your best interest and his best interest for you to know how to take care of yourself as well, so you can help him instead of even being a liability. Or if he gets into a situation where you can support him instead of him having to take care of you or worry about protecting you, if you can protect yourself. And I think some people maybe don't want to acknowledge that, there's a lot of violence that happens, if it's a new boyfriend and you don't know them very well. Then there's a lot of domestic violence that it helps to just know how to protect yourself. But I mean, if you have someone that you do trust, your husband or long-term boyfriend who you know and have relied on in the past to keep you safe, well, then it might be in your best interest to just better your own skills and have some more confidence in your own ability to protect yourself. And then in the case of if you have a family, if you have children, then I guess relying on your husband or boyfriend to protect you and the whole family is not as good as having that kind of power yourself as well. So if you do want to have a family in the future, or you have children, then being able to protect them as much as your husband can is important too.
Cool. I guess Caitlin.
I mean, I feel like Chelsea and Joe pretty much hit it on the head with, your boyfriend or significant other is not always going to be there, and sometimes things go bad and they're not around, and you need to be able to handle that situation, basically. And both of them mentioned this. I agree. Your significant other will probably be supportive of you learning how to take care of yourself, because that makes their job easier if they are with you. Say if there's a dangerous scenario happening, you can both have eyes out for it and see it coming, and together on a plan for like, all right, you do this, I'm doing this, we're getting out of here safely. Or at least be able to coordinate with each other. And there was something else that I thought of. Oh, my sister, Joe talked about this with having a family. My sister has now, and her husband works full time, out and doing errands for a walk and getting some exercise, and her husband is at work. And I mean, she's voiced concern to me in the past, like, I'm loading groceries in the car and trying to wrangle my children into their car seats, and just, there's no one there to help. Able to anything that might come your way during those sorts of situations is also a really important aspect.
Cool. Okay, so let's see what the next one was. Oh, so this is a good one that comes up not just for the ladies, but also a lot of times for the guys. A lot of people feel they don't need hands-on self-defense training because they have a gun and they know how to shoot it. I know Caitlin's done a small bit of shooting with me, but Joe just recently took a 2-day course, and about 2 months ago took a 1-day course on shooting. So I'm going to hand that over to her to start. So whenever you're ready, Joe.
Okay. I guess something that we touched on in the shooting course was, you know, if you're pointing a gun at someone and you have your finger on the trigger, like you're shooting to kill them. And maybe some situations don't require that level of violence. Maybe you can stop it, run away, or get out of the situation without pulling a gun and shooting. And I don't like saying that because it kind of implies that you shouldn't take, like, if you have to shoot to kill, then to save yourself, then do. But I mean, if you have that other option of less violence, and if you can get out without, you know, escalating it that much, then I think it's in your best interest, and it makes it kind of an overall safer situation. Because if someone's, you know, trying to steal your handbag in a parking lot and you pull your gun out and try to shoot them, that takes a different level of intensity to the situation. And on another note, people who have guns, just because you have a gun doesn't mean you know how to use it in a situation where you're energetic and adrenalized and scared. So I guess you have to train for that anyway, train for those types of situations. Just taking, you know, your gun to the range indoors and shooting a target isn't going to help you if you're being attacked or in that kind of dangerous situation. So if you're going to go get training with your firearm, then you might as well have some kind of self-defense training too that might be more appropriate for more common situations, or you know, even supplement your firearms knowledge as well.
Cool. Let's go to Caitlin.
So kind of piggybacking off of what Joe said, somebody's trying to steal your purse, you can live without your purse. Odds are pretty good you can live without your purse anyway. And you pull a gun out like you're going to shoot somebody. And there's so many stories of people drawing their gun and shooting when it is not appropriate. So there's, you know, people get adrenalized, they get scared, they get, as Joe said, energetic, and they target shooting you've done on the range just kind of goes out the window. Target doesn't mean that you can handle your stress in a situation, and that is a really powerful weapon to not be able to handle under stress. So unless you've had some really good use training with your handgun, rely on that. I would really hesitate to rely on it as like, oh, I'll just shoot him. Will you? And that's another thing, like, will you actually shoot them if you really do need to? You have all your skills. Will you shoot them? Have you made peace with yourself about that? I mean, that's kind of going off in a different direction, but the point is that there's a lot to consider, and if you haven't done that thought, if you haven't done the preparation for the eventuality that you do need to use it, then you're kind of doing yourself and those around you a disservice. And plus, you need time to get to your gun anyway, so hand-to-hand skills buys you that time.
Okay. So let's go over to Chelsea.
Yeah, both really great points by Caitlin and Joe. Caitlin hit, I think, one of the bigger points that I was thinking about, which is, I feel like especially here can be very cavalier about guns, because, most everybody's gone to the shooting range, shot one. They have a dad who's been in the military or a friend who's known how to shoot them. So a lot of people have gone to the shooting range and been around a weapon, or at least have seen them. But what Caitlin was saying I thought was really good, which is if you are in a situation over something like a purse and you've amped yourself up over however long a period of time that you're going to shoot somebody if they approach you, and you get into a situation where it's just about a purse, I mean, that is a human life that you have to then aim your weapon at and pull the trigger for. And if you are adrenalized and you've only been shooting in a shooting range, you have to think about what other people are around you. So maybe it's in a public area. You might not have trained for that situation. You're full of adrenaline. You might not be thinking about what's behind this person. We said taking your purse. That's the scenario. So this was some things to think about. And again, like Caitlin said, I know a lot of women carry their handgun in their purse. So you have to have those hand-to-hand skills to be able to even get to your weapon if you do need it, because you never know what kind of situation is going to, what it's going to start from. You can't pick and choose point A. So.
Cool. And I'd add to that, everybody made good points. Have you made peace with yourself? Does the situation require that level of force? Using your hand-to-hand skills to get to your gun, because most attacks are ambush. You don't see it coming. If you try to say, okay, I'm always aware and I can never be caught off guard, then sure, there's no reason to train. But I don't know a single human being on the planet who is that clairvoyant. And definitely, if it's a situation where it's got to be a situation that's bad enough to warrant you using deadly force before you pull the gun. They mentioned, if it's a purse snatcher, there's been situations that's been shared on social media about people who lifters, and those people who shot, even though they're trying to act in the moral right, legally, they have no chance. They're going to jail because they endangered life over something that didn't require lethal force. It's a situation that's bad enough that you need your gun. You might pull it and he might see the gun, or you might shoot and miss, or you may hit a non-lethal target, and that stops him. He decides to stop his attack and he runs away, and that's great. But it's, again, it's got to be bad enough to warrant the gun. And two, bad guys will, whether you're shooting or whether you pull, they will attack you with your gun. So you've got to know how to use your body, use your hand-to-hand skills to retain your pistol, but so that they don't take it away from you and use it against you. And bad guys do get close enough to do that. That's a common misconception. I mean, can I get to it? Do you carry it on your body, or do you carry it in a purse, or do you leave it in your car? So, and I'd recommend always carry it on your body. I know a lot of women, look at purses with holsters. There was a story recently. A lady had her gun in her purse, and she put her hand down in her purse to find something, and didn't have that gun properly secured. Pressed the trigger, and I think shot herself. I don't know. I don't remember if the story was, she had a lethal shot, or if it was just, shot in an appendage, but it went off because it shouldn't have been in the purse. So please consider that when you're looking at, when you default to think, well, I'll just shoot the guy. Okay, so next question is, or another common one is, well, I've never trained in self-defense. I've never trained in martial arts before, so I can't do this. So we'll go to Chelsea.
So one thing to keep in mind is that this course was meant for people who don't train in a dojo setting every single day or every other day. I mean, my own mother went through part of this course too, and she did great with it, and she's never had any training in her life. So if that's the only reason, that I would encourage you to kind of take that little step forward and go out and try something new, kind of go out of your comfort zone. Because in the end, these are going to be skills that you can take with you outside of it, that you can practice at home, that are simple enough that you can kind of scale it for yourself. And especially even if you have something that you're nursing a little bit, you can still come, you can still get great information, you can be around a bunch of people who are practicing the same things, who are going through the same things as you. So
Cool. Joe.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, I mean, you have to start somewhere with everything, and this is a good place to start. Also, if it's something that you're afraid of or haven't tried yet, and you think you'd be bad at it, I mean, you don't really know if you don't like it, or don't know if you don't go and you never try it. So kind of like Chelsea was saying with the just trying new things. So it might be something where it is something where you can't really know how it's going to be until you get there, until you try it, and it can't hurt. And even a little bit of knowledge when it comes to self-defense can go a long way. Even just taking a day like this to teach yourself the basics can make a big difference to knowing nothing, I think. And I think that, I mean, it's definitely worth your time to try new things, especially something that you know is not going to be a waste of time already. I mean, if any kind of knowledge is valuable in this area, or when it comes to self-defense, then it can't possibly hurt to try it. And I guess some people are afraid of looking silly or feeling like they're not very good at it. But like Chelsea said, this is an intro level course, so that's what it's made for. And it's also kind of designed to be not easy, but designed to be something that everybody can do. So I think this makes it a good opportunity. But so I guess it's just getting over that initial fear of trying new things, like Chelsea said. It doesn't have to be, or maybe it's a fear of like not being good at something, but this isn't really something that you're going to do to be good at. You're going to do it to learn about it. So if you're there to learn, then you should be starting off not knowing much. So you're already in the right place, I guess, for that kind of input, and you just have to go in with the kind of accepting new, I'm going to learn as much as I can mindset.
Cool. Caitlin. You're on, Caitlin.
Yeah, trying to unmute. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, Chelsea and Joe made really good points. And I'll just reiterate again because it's that important. This is designed to meet you where you're at. If you're coming in with nothing, it starts from nothing and builds up. It builds on top of itself, and you progress as the day goes on. If you're coming in, you've already got some skills. Lay a foundation anyway and build on top of that, and then you can see how your skills fit in. It's extremely accessible to most ages to whom it would be appropriate. I mean, I think Joe made a good point that it's the level of expertise that you're doubting, but rather whether you're willing to not know something. I know I mean, I feel this too. It seems more manageable and more doable if it's like a 2-hour course. It's offered by like a university or a local thing or whatever. But the great thing about this course is it's a whole day, and what you get in those 2 hours at a community course is valuable, but it's not as much as you could get to really be confident in the skills that you learn.
Can you say that last? Can you say that last bit one more time? Because you're breaking up a bit. I don't know if your bandwidth is too low or what.
It might be. Our Wi-Fi is not great.
And you may have like 2 other roommates on it at the same time.
Yeah. So what I said was that, well, let's see if I can remember what I said.
It's the 2-hour versus full day.
The community courses that are more manageable, they are usually free or very affordable. They do not offer you the opportunity to really, really hone your confidence in what you learn. Material being provided in this course is not more difficult to get at the community course. It's not, but it is a little more detailed because we have time to go into more things and we have time to practice. What we were talking about earlier with being stressed out in that situation, like with the gun thing, with our hands. I mean, how many times have you gotten up to speak in front of somebody and you're like practically shaking apart? This gives us the chance to practice under a little bit of stress so you don't fall apart when you need to stay together.
Cool. Let's see. And let's see. So another one that's closely related to that is I'm not physically fit, I'm out of shape, or I'm not strong enough, et cetera, and so I can't do it. So let's go back to anybody want to take this one to be first? Okay, so
Well,
Caitlin.
I can say something on that.
Okay, well, Joe volunteered. Okay, you're on, Joe.
So I don't know. I think I started kind of doing things like this. I felt really kind of insecure about my own ability to do those sorts of things, and like we went to a gun course, or I went to a gun course, and I was using a gun that was too big for me, and my thumb couldn't reach the magazine drop, and I thought, oh, my hands are too small for my gun. Like, my hands are too small to be a good shot or to use guns well. And what actually happened is I got a new gun that was smaller and I shot a lot better. And I think what I learned from that is finding you have to make those things work for you instead of thinking, oh, I have to change myself to be good at something, or I have to change myself to for this kind of self-defense technique, I'm too slow or too heavy or too small or too weak. And I think that this course is really good for finding things that work for you. And if something doesn't work for you, then everyone's been really good about kind of finding a way around that. Like, I took this course for the first time with my mom, who had an implant in her hip, and so everything that we did training wise, she did it on one side, and then when that was better, she could, go home and practice on the other side. And so it's really kind of conducive to modifications and things that work for you. And also, most of the techniques that are kind of shown in this course, or most of the exercises that we do, are designed to work for anybody, because if they work for someone who's too small or too weak, or if they don't work for someone who's too small or too weak, then they're not reliable enough to work for someone bigger and stronger, because what if they are having an off day or get something happens to them while they're sick or carrying a heavy load or things like that. And you can't, these things aren't really designed for people in their 100% tip-top shape all the time, because it's not a sport. It's not really performance-based. It's designed for someone who is coming at a place from power, or a more stronger place than you are, and designed for you to be able to defend yourself even if you are weaker, technically. So it's not about how physically fit you are. It's about learning how to react and what to do. And I would say it's more of a mental thing, and knowing what to do in this situation versus being able to physically lift a certain weight or do a certain motion or that sort of thing.
Cool. Let's go back to Caitlin then.
I don't have anything to add to that. I think Joe nailed it.
Okay. So I guess we'll go to Chelsea, see if she's got it.
Yeah, I mean, Joe pretty much nailed it all, but I think the biggest thing to emphasize, like she said, is that a course like this, and also bringing in back to what Caitlin said, is about the length of the course like this and the actual material of the course like this, is that you can really take the time to understand how this information and how these things can work for you in your life and in what you do in your daily routine. And you're going to be around a bunch of different people with maybe similar routines or a bunch of different experiences that can help you understand how this can better serve you. And if you have any questions regarding how it can serve you, you're around a bunch of experienced training people who've been training for a very long time who can help you with that. But I guess a personal story going back to my mom is, like I said before, she had gone through this course, and at the time she had had some issues with her back. And I think it's important for people to understand that just because you come to this course doesn't mean that you have to go 100% the entire day, every single thing. If you're uncomfortable doing one scenario or one thing, it's okay for you to sit out and just kind of observe. So don't psych yourself out or put unnecessary pressure on your shoulders that's going to prevent you from coming to the whole day. So, give yourself a little bit of room and leeway and patience to come to the day and to kind of learn and get your feet wet.
Cool. So, adding to that, we want to challenge you so that you grow, but we won't overwhelm you, because everyone comes in it with different abilities. I've had women in their 50s come. I've had 20-year-old CrossFitters come to this stuff, and everyone gets pushed where they start from. And kind of to quote one of my mentors, Tony Blauer, some people ask him a lot of times, do I have to be physically fit to do self-defense training? And he'll say, he says that, well, your fitness matters and it also doesn't matter. Obviously, if being healthy, being physically fit helps you in every aspect of your life. But on the day that you're attacked, maybe you are injured because you stepped off a curb funny and twisted your ankle, or you've got the flu that week and you don't have 100% energy. So in that case, you can't suddenly go from wherever you are to top fitness level the instant the bad guy attacks. So yeah, if it inspires you to get in shape, that's not a bad thing. But you don't need to be in great shape to train. So, and again, on that day, whatever fitness you are, that's what you have to work with. So if your fitness is not that great, well, sorry, I can't change it in an instant. So you've got to work with what you have. The thing about a lot of attacks is, that initial point where the bad guy attacks you usually doesn't last very long. At the most, like a minute. if you effectively defend yourself and go hard where you can and efficiently, meaning you'll learn how to move and defend yourself efficiently, so you don't need to be stronger than the other guy. Then a lot of times they realize you're too much work. This is not going as easily as I wanted it to. Okay, I'm going to find a victim who's easier target for me. And there's a story, and I'll try to link it in the comments later, of a woman who, it was a home invasion. She was home by herself. Her son was paraplegic, and he busted in the door, and her attitude was, hell no, not this house, because she's thinking about her kid. And she was probably in her mid-30s and not in great shape, overweight, and never had any training. And the guy hit her across the head with some kind of blunt object a couple times, but she kept fighting back because she knew the stakes were too high. On that day, she didn't get to choose her fitness level. She had to work with what she had. And she fought back effectively. And, like Chelsea or somebody who said, it's more in the mindset. Maybe it's Joe, which all of them will say that, but it's the mindset. She said, hell no, not this house, because I've got my kid upstairs. And if I'm defeated or I'm knocked out or hurt, there's no one to protect my child. So what ended up happening is she actually fought back and actually physically threw that bad guy off of her back porch. So the whole fitness thing is not really a barrier. So the next question, and this is really tied to it. We've kind of already answered it, but I'll ask it anyway. Concerns about, is the training too rough and will I get injured? So let's see. Anyone want to take this one? Raise your hand so I can see it. Anyone? Okay. Okay, so Caitlin's going to start us off.
So kind of going along what we've been talking about with the past couple questions is designed to meet you where you're at, better from where you started from, and also to keep you safe. We are not trying to injure anybody. We've got a good record of not injuring anybody. That's the goal, to keep it that way. We really, really encourage communicating between you and your partner while you're practicing so that if you've got a bum knee or something, you can watch out for it. Or just, history of something, like it goes out sometimes, out for it, that kind of thing. We do have first aid personnel on hand in case anything does happen to go wrong. Usually it's one of our instructors or one of the bad guys that shows up. I've never seen one of the attendees need to use the first aid kit. But that's me personally. I can't speak for all the.
And just, I want to chime in real quick because Caitlin cut out once. What she was saying is she's never seen anyone that attended this to need the first aid kit. So I wanted to qualify that never, that was ahead of herself.
Sorry, I'll try to speak slowly so my internet can keep up. Yeah. Yeah, we're taking every possible to challenge you and keep you safe. And if we think that things are going, or it looks like you're getting too excited, or even your partner is getting too excited, let's stop. Or remind everybody, slow down. We want things to stay under control. It is a little chaotic, but it's controlled chaos.
Okay, cool. Let's go to Joe now.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm a kind of person that tends to be kind of cautious about these things, and I've never been worried about getting hurt. I think most people who get to these courses, from what I've seen, are more worried about hurting other people than they are about getting hurt themselves by the time they've been in there for a few minutes. Like when we have the people who are wearing helmets or guards to kind of like when the instructors kind of dress out in gear so you can actually hit them a little bit. Like people tend to be more worried about hurting the people that have full gear on than they are about like getting hit themselves. And you know, from what I've seen, we always go really slowly at first and then kind of build up. And if it gets to a level of intensity that you're uncomfortable with, there's no shame in saying something and then slowing down a little bit. And all the instructions are always really clear and it's shown a couple times, and I don't even think we do anything too crazy. So just from my personal experience, I've never felt worried about it, and I haven't seen anyone who's felt super uncomfortable with anything. And if they were, then they wouldn't be forced to do it. So I think the likelihood of actually getting hurt, even in a minor way, is pretty small.
Cool. Let's go to Chelsea.
Yeah, Joe and Caitlin covered it very well, I think. So as you're going through the course, understand that it's going to be just a little bit of a challenge. So the goal is to push you just beyond that little bit of a level, but you also are in control of how far you get pushed as well. So if you feel uncomfortable going at a certain speed, if you feel so if you feel uncomfortable going at a certain speed, or you feel uncomfortable doing a certain exercise, you get to be the judge on whether or not you do that. If you feel like you're going to injure somebody else, again, you can back off as well. So nobody is going to make you do anything that you feel uncomfortable with. So I feel like, or at least with some friends that I've spoken with, that's been a little bit of an issue there. So just understand that you have control over what you're doing there.
Cool. Yeah, and that ties in, what Chelsea was just saying ties into the next question. The potential, because with women's self-defense, or this particular course, a large part of the focus is on combating or defending against attempted rape or attempted sexual assault. And we don't know, for the people who are coming, we don't know the backgrounds of anyone who's been through a situation. So because it is this material, there are potentials for triggered memories and of past trauma or feeling overwhelmed emotionally. So let's sit on that a little bit. So I'll start with Chelsea here.
Yeah, so just to continue, I guess to emphasize a little bit more is, as instructors, our job is to kind of help give you these tools that you can use to help defend yourself. But it's a little bit of a two-way street. Like, we're not just here to blurt out information, we're here to work with you. So I guess I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you coming to the course to understand that this is just as much for you as it is for everybody else. So this is really yours to take hold of, to take the information and kind of personally feel where it can take you and what it can do in your life. So, and I guess I feel like it's important to emphasize the point that you're really in control of how much you do, because a lot of the times people won't take that initiative, I feel, or at least in terms of my social group, my friends that are girls social group, a lot of times won't take initiative or will feel uncomfortable taking initiative to say, no, I don't want to do that, because they'll feel like they're being rude or something like that. But like I said, we're here to help you. And if you feel like a certain scenario or something is going to be a little bit uncomfortable for you, that could be part of the helping process, is you understanding that and giving yourself permission to either step out or step in. So.
Okay, let's go to Joe.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a legitimate concern. I think that kind of leads into a lot of the reason why people don't go, is that you have to, before you start working to be able to defend yourself against those kinds of situations, you have to accept that there's a possibility of them happening to you. And that's a scary reality. So I think it's easier to kind of be in denial and be like, oh, that's terrible when that happens, like, but that'll never happen to me. Because it's a lot, more comfortable way to go through life, but you have to kind of allow yourself to be afraid of it happening enough to work to prevent it. And that fear is an important thing, and that can be something that motivates you, and that doesn't have to be your motivator. And I guess kind of don't give a bigger voice to that fear than there needs to be. But if you have to kind of acknowledge that might happen and those situations are real, to get into a training and get into a place where you can handle yourself if that does happen, then I think it's necessary. And there's certainly no shame in it. And if you do come to a course, then people have been really understanding, and those kind of things are never forced in training, and always very careful to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone knows what's going on and knows the technique and things like that. So I think kind of being in that controlled environment is really beneficial for learning how to deal with those kinds of situations.
Cool. Caitlin. Caitlin, looks like you're muted again. There we go.
Okay. Struggle bus. So I think we'll hit it pretty well. We do, again, really emphasize communication. From an instructor standpoint, we want to make sure that everybody understands what we're about to go through when we're explaining things. And we will periodically remind everyone that it's up to you whether you want to do something. You can always choose to sit out. You can go take a walk and get some fresh air, get some water. And yeah, this is not the place to try and work through your problems if you know that you have some trauma. That is not our job. But if you and a mental health specialist have decided that you're in a good place to do this, then we are here for you, and we will support you in any way that we can and keep you safe as we can emotionally as we go through the training.
Cool. Yeah, I was glad Caitlin mentioned that, because that was something I was going to say is a lot of people who've been through a traumatic experience, unfortunately, a lot of martial arts coaches and other people will say, "Oh, this bad thing happened to you. You should go get training." And I've seen it firsthand before I knew any better. I had a young lady who was at college and had been drugged and raped, and her mom, said, "Okay, we need to get you to a self-defense class." So her mom called me. She didn't call, and I was a young instructor, naive. I didn't know how these things worked. I said, "Sure, come on." And they came to the class, and the mom participated, and she tried to get her daughter on the mat, but her daughter was just not ready. It was still too soon. She had not, I don't think, even started the healing process. I don't think they were seeing a therapist. So if something bad has happened to you, definitely see a therapist. Start that process that way. Some people have found that self-defense training does work for them, but more often than not, I've seen it trigger past trauma and cause a breakdown. Even just the stress of certain situations. A good friend of mine, she had a issue at work where a guy was sexually harassing her, and she came to class and she was fine until the end of the second day. This is a different course. She was fine until the end of the second day, and it suddenly started coming up. And but we worked with her. So even if you have an issue that you didn't think was an issue, and things start happening, we've worked with people through those situations, got them to breathe and got them through the course. And for that particular person, she gave herself permission to quit her job if it got bad enough. I mean, it was already bad because she was in tears. It's already affecting her. And I know her husband. I know he would totally support her if it got so bad she needed to quit her job and they had that source of income absent. He would be behind her. So by the time she left, she had a plan, and I think it was maybe 2 or 3 months later, she called me and said, "Hey, I found this really great job." And I was like, "Awesome." So we will work through you with things, but again, like they said, if it starts getting a little too much for you emotionally, then take a breather, take 5 minutes, maybe sit back and watch. But whether you're ready, that's something you have to decide. And again, we approach everything, what you're going to do before you do it. We're not going to suddenly attack you, and it's not going to be like a sink or swim type thing where, do you know how to swim? No. Okay, we're going to throw you in the deep end of the pool and you'll figure it out. We don't do it that way. That's bad coaching. We will gradually go through the process. But tied to that, research has shown that people who have taken training, or people who've been in bad situations, women who've been in bad situations who fight back, just because they tried something, they were able to do something instead of just freezing and having that feeling of total helplessness. Women who fought back, maybe they got beat up a little bit, but they didn't get raped. They didn't get murdered. Most of them have either no PTSD or very limited PTSD and get over it pretty fast. They recover pretty well. So we give you a little bit of pre-traumatic stress so that you don't get post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's training. Okay, let's see. Just a couple things. We're approaching an hour. I think Joe has to sign off. She's got something going on. So thanks, Joe, for coming in, and if you want to say goodbye.
Thanks. Yeah. I guess thanks for everyone who's watching this. And on kind of an ending note, I just want to say that this course is really empowering. So kind of talking about having to work yourself up to make sure you're ready for it. I think that if you go in wanting to learn this stuff, then this is a good opportunity to empower yourself, and it's really not so scary once you get in it. So
cool.
Hope everyone comes. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks. Okay, so we're getting close to an hour. We're just going to have a couple more questions and we'll get out of here. So I know people who are tuning in live, they got stuff to do, and anyone who watches this later for any future course, I don't want to waste too much of your time. So one question I've seen happen, but not often, is, oh, I'm going to be working with only women. I'm not going to be doing anything with guys who are actually bigger and stronger. What would that big, how would this work against that big, strong guy? And we do have male assistants to play the role of bad guy. Their job is to be there and get beat up by you guys, by you ladies. But we build up to that. So first, you would be training with another female participant to learn the stuff. And then it's your choice. Okay, I want to try this against that guy, the big guy. And then you can do that. And that's totally voluntary. If you don't feel comfortable, then you don't have to do it yourself. And you're like, okay, I need to know this works, because that's, we've had some participants, she's like, okay, this works on this small, lady, but what about that 6'2", 250-pound guy? Would it work against them? And it's like, okay. And we start out light and then build up. You're successful. We'll push you and challenge you, but through that, and you working through that challenge and making it work, then that skill is something you can rely on. You own it. And if let's see if the ladies want to comment on that a little bit. Start with Chelsea.
Yeah. So, like what Tucker was saying, is it's important to realize that you're not being thrown into the deep end on this. So we're starting gradually, and then we're working into different scenarios that you have complete control over whether or not you enter. And if you do want to push yourself and give yourself that little bit of a challenge, you have an opportunity to really test out those new skills on a person who might be that kind of a individual that would attack you on the street. So a larger guy, a larger person. I know I was at one PPM a little while ago, and a lady was asking me if my partner, who is a larger guy than me, was actually like giving us all in a bear hug. And, we showed her, it's actually me doing this technique on this guy, and it's working. So you get to really figure out for yourself in a controlled environment whether or not these techniques will work for you. And then having them work for you and being able to do it kind of helps boost that confidence level a little bit, that that you can take these tools and apply them for yourself. So
awesome. Caitlin.
Yeah. Both of y'all have already said it is it's your choice whether or not you want to challenge yourself by working with one of the bigger, stronger guys. Totally honest, it's fun. It really is. Especially if they're wearing armor and you get to actually hit somebody, it's empowering. It really is. Chelsea agrees, I can tell. It is, but basically what she was saying too is this course, the material is designed to work for the smallest, least fit person who's just walking in off the street and survive. So I really like that we have male assistants on hand so that you can prove that to yourself. Because it's really easy to think, oh, I can toss her around, but what about somebody like Mike Tucker? What if I'm faced up against that guy or somebody even bigger? And they're there, and you can try it out, and maybe something needs to be adjusted. Or maybe usually we work with it, actually always, not usually, we work with it until you've got it, and you can do it confidently.
Cool. So we'll start wrapping it up. And I think, there's a couple other questions that sometimes I think people think are in their minds, but they don't ask. And I think we may have covered it through this broadcast. Is it not come because they're not sure what to expect at a course? And also they don't want to waste their time and money because it is one day and it's $100. And a good friend of mine once said, we're teaching courses to government agents, and he was mentioning some of the gear that he has bought for himself personally for people who were going overseas back in 2005. Somebody said, "Oh, what flashlight is that you have?" And he said, "Oh, this model, blah blah blah, and it costs $400. $400 for a flashlight." And somebody's like, man, all that gear is so expensive. And his reply was, how much is your life worth? Do you want to buy the $10 flashlight that's going to go out in the middle of the night? Or are you going to spend a little bit more on something you can rely on? For me, what you're buying is, you're sacrificing some money and some time, but what you're getting out of it is confidence and competence. Not just feeling good, that, not just the feeling, oh, I'm safer, but actually being safer. And to that, there's another point, and I'm going mind blank, so I'm going to pass it off to one of the ladies while I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. So, Caitlin, you're on.
Yeah, it's really hard to get people to, did you remember, to come to spend that. But, I mean, I can't agree enough that how much is your life worth? It's one day. And, I mean, to be frank, $100 for a day's worth of very skilled instructorship. Mike Tucker is he is passionate about this and extremely well studied on the material. And Chelsea and I have learned a lot from him, so we're hopefully gonna be that good too. But we're there for anything you may need. $100 for that kind of environment is a steal. Like, I mean, there's equipment, there's just, it's not talent, skill, all this stuff that goes into it, and you get a whole day of practice to make yourself safer. And your family or your friends, whoever you're with, they benefit from your training.
Cool. Yeah, she just mentioned something that I remember what I was saying. You're buying peace of mind, not just for yourself, but you're buying peace of mind for your family. Okay, I've got to take a business trip for a week, halfway across the country. I've got this training that's going to make your kids feel better about you leaving. That's going to make your spouse feel better about you leaving. Okay, she's got the skills. I don't have to worry as much. I mean, people are going to worry because they love you. There's nothing around that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But they can rest a little bit easier knowing you can do something about it if something bad were to happen. And you can rest easier. Maybe you have to leave work super late. You're walking through that dark, deserted parking lot. That could be a thing. And maybe when you have the skills, you realize, okay, that dark, deserted parking lot, which you can realize is, and this is a fear management thing, the nice thing about a deserted parking lot is it's deserted. There's no one there. There's no one there to attack you. So a lot of times we fear that deserted parking lot because we imagine something going on. See, Chelsea, you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, so I guess just supporting what you guys have been saying, and also to reemphasize what Joe had said, because for me, this is what resonated with me and a couple of other people that I had spoken to, is when you're coming to a course like this, you have the time and you have the environment where you can actually practice these skills. And when we say you can give confidence and competence to yourself, to me, that kind of translates to when you're in a scenario or maybe you're approaching something that might be a scenario, that deserted parking lot, as Tucker said. You kind of give yourself a little bit of that fighting spirit. So it's really important, I think, especially for women, to give yourself permission to fight, give yourself permission to be confident in what you can do, because you have arms and legs and claws and fingers just like everyone else. So you can use them, be confident in what you have. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you can't fight back, or that you can't fight back as well. So I think understanding how to use those weapons of our body, especially in a scenario that you need to avoid, I think is really important. So give yourself that confidence and give yourself that fighting spirit.
Awesome. Okay. I think, is there anything you guys can think of that we haven't talked about? Or anything you want to add, any final comments? Because we've gone for an hour and 10 minutes.
I got one.
Okay.
So we've been speaking a lot about this in terms of like you singular, but understand that when you're coming to this course, you're going to be interacting with other women as well. So you're also kind of building a friendship and a network, a support network. So you're not alone. You're not by yourself. There are probably other women. I know I was one of them at one point years ago, who are very nervous about coming and kind of, feeling a little alienated. So when you do come, you're going to make friends. You're not going to be alone. So.
Cool. Caitlin, anything? No? Okay. Well, good. Hopefully everybody got a little better idea of what this stuff is about and what to expect. And as we go, of course, we got the one October 7th that's coming up in a week. So you can email us at actdefense@gmail.com or go to actdefense.net, and you can find it under our training calendar or under our training programs tabs. And hope to see you there. And I think what we're going to do at this one that's coming up is we're going to do a bit of filming. And if you don't want to be on camera, then tell us, we won't film you. I'll get film Chelsea and Caitlin a lot. That way, for the next set, we can have videos so you can actually see what we're doing. We actually did put a video on the Facebook event page for this one of Chelsea getting out of a hair grab and showing how to do that. So, yeah, I might be going a little bit more intense with her, but she's got experience and she's an instructor in training, so she has to work harder. Thanks for tuning in, and we're going to sign off and hope to see you at some training soon. Take care.